So recently I've been playing a ton of the new Splatoon 3 Side Order DLC, and it's gotten me thinking about the future of the Splatoon franchise and what they will do next with it. Not that I'm unsatisfied with the amount of content coming out of the franchise at all. I mean, for crying out loud, I'm a Pikmin fan first and foremost, and the entire Splatoon franchise was created and got up to its third entry during the time between Pikmin 3 and Pikmin 4's release. So it's not that I'm dissatisfied with the output of the Splatoon franchise, but with how much unique stuff they are doing with it, I'm really excited and curious to see what they do next. Because for those of you guys who have not checked out the Side Order DLC and don't know about its core gameplay, it's basically Splatoon's take on the roguelike genre, which means that Side Order is a really short campaign, but it's an endurance run that you have to beat within a certain amount of lives to complete, or you have to start all over again, with each floor you go to being randomly generated within a certain amount of presets that the developers built for the game, as well as giving you a selection between 3 randomly generated power-ups that you can manipulate in various ways to get the one you want. But basically, these selections of power-ups lets you customize the way you can approach the challenge of getting to the top floor with your own custom OP moveset, or non-OP moveset if you want to make a bit of a challenge for yourself. 3 of my favorite loadouts that I made during the Side Order DLC is this loadout that I call the Sonic build that relies on the mobile special charge chip, which increases your special gauge by the amount of movement speed you're moving at, combined with a bunch of other speed power-ups to make the charge faster, and the special triple splat down that stomps right on the ground and creates an area of effect damage around you to destroy enemies. So basically, I just ran around and stomped, kind of like a boost Sonic game where you're just running around, stomping occasionally and boosting, not really utilizing my weapon in any way other than to just create ink to move in. It was super fun. Another one I did was with the Splatling gun, where I added homing shots to it so that the gun basically became a laser homing in on anything near me directly with none of the Splatling shots missing. It actually increased the damage by a lot in my opinion. And then there was this more mixed kit that I made with the Splat Roller, where I got mobile ink recovery so that I could automatically recover ink while moving so I'd never have to swim, poison ink so that the ink I make poisons the enemies behind me, and then a bunch of lucky chips so that items spawn from the enemies I'm passively killing with the poison, as well as damage to just attack what's right in front of me. So I had this play style of kind of smacking people as much as I could with my damage, and then when stuff gets rough, I run away while all the enemies die from my poison ink and I go back to collect what goodies they dropped from my lucky chips. Needless to say, there's a lot of cool things you can do in this mode, and it's absolutely my favorite mode in Splatoon so far. But it also got me thinking about the future of the franchise, what other genres and gameplay mechanics / ideas could be introduced into Splatoon, and how they would even go about doing that. Obviously, we know there's going to be a Splatoon 4 on the next console, with the final Splatfest in Splatoon 3 giving us a tease for what's to come in that game, which will probably have a good single player mode and solid multiplayer as always. But as great as the main game of Splatoon is, as shown through the Side Order DLC and other modes like Salmon Run, the Splatoon gameplay is so unique and bursting with potential that it could be applied in ways to make many different and unique fun experiences. The fact that Splatoon as a franchise is a solid single player experience while simultaneously being secondary to the multiplayer is proof in itself that this gameplay doesn't just work well for online multiplayer battles, but in a variety of other different settings, and I really want to see Nintendo explore those ideas, but I'm not really sure how they would go about doing it. So far, they've done it by making it DLCs or alternative modes in the main Splatoon games, like adding Salmon Run in Splatoon 2, and even Tabletop Turf Battle in Splatoon 3, as well as the new Side Order DLC. But because these are side modes in an already complete game that focuses on the multiplayer and single player as the core content of the game, it kind of limits how much they can flesh out those other ideas to an extent, but at the same time, if they were to make a dedicated Splatoon spin-off for any of these other ideas that they have, or even to expand on stuff like Side Order DLC or Table Turf Battle or whatever, there's the risk that because it's a separate game from the main Splatoon, Nintendo or whoever helps develop this game might feel more inclined to change the core gameplay of Splatoon to the point where the spin-off is just not a Splatoon game. Like, for example, what happened with the spin-off game Hey Pikmin. It's a decent enough game on its own, but it has none of the core gameplay mechanics that make Pikmin such a unique game, and is more more of a completely separate game with a Pikmin coat of paint rather than a true evolution of what was introduced with the original Pikmin and its 3 sequels. Those types of drastic departures in gameplay can work for more conceptually simplistic franchises like Mario, who is only about running and jumping, which gives you a lot of wiggle room to create Mario platformers that are unique from each other while still staying Mario. But with games like Pikmin and Splatoon, the core gameplay attributes of what make those games so fun are a lot more specific and work so well that any departure from that will just be a straight up downgrade in every way. If I can't shoot ink to not only kill enemies but create a path to swim faster and refill my ammo, then it's not a Splatoon game. And that core gameplay has been so fleshed out and perfected over the course of the series to where now, if there were a Splatoon spin-off that wasn't just an extra mode or DLC from the main game, where the control and movement from the main game is seamlessly brought over into the new idea, I don't know if it would be as good. But they also could release a spin-off game that controls the exact same as the main Splatoon games, but just has a different premise. There's nothing stopping them from doing that, but I think the chances of it controlling like the main Splatoon games is less likely if it is a spin-off rather than DLC, paid or otherwise in the main game. But enough yapping about how they would make this content for us and how it could go wrong. Let's do something more fun and theorize on what alternative Splatoon spin-off games or spin-off modes Nintendo could create in the future and should create in order to add to the overall variety of what Splatoon already has to offer. Obviously, what they did with Side Order was so great fundamentally that I think they should straight up make a whole game dedicated to fleshing out that concept because, oh my god, Side Order is just so fun. I love it to death and I want to see more of it. But as for new unique ideas, I would like to see a Splatoon game mode that is focused on local multiplayer. So far we have amazing online competitive modes for Splatoon, great single player content, and even good online PvE content through Salmon Run. But the local multiplayer is really lacking. I mean, in the first Splatoon game, you had to strap a Wiimote to a Pro controller in order to do the local multiplayer. It's clearly been an afterthought for Nintendo throughout the development of the first 3 games, and I'd like to see that change in Splatoon 4. Now, obviously, you can play locally if you all have your own Switch and copy of the game and are in the same room, but that's basically just playing online with your friends without an internet connection in the same room. What I'm talking about is a mode built from the ground up to be played on a single console with a single copy of the game and 4 controllers connected to that Switch. Out of the big multiplayer Nintendo games of Splatoon, Smash Brothers, and Mario Kart, and I guess Mario Party, whenever I'm hanging out with friends, I can't really play Splatoon with them, even though it's my favorite out of those 4 franchises. So I would love a mode where I can help introduce Splatoon to my friends without having to buy them a copy of Splatoon 3 and telling them to like learn the game and play it on their own until we can play together. Now, the most simple idea for a mode like this is just to have 4 players split screen for the regular multiplayer Splatoon content, which I do think they should include, but I would love to see a mode that is dedicated and designed to be played with multiple people on a single console. Like maybe, for example, a co-op campaign that is similar to the single player modes in Splatoon, except you have to rely on the multiple people you're playing with in order to progress. Like a Splatoon version of the game It Takes Two or Super Mario 3D World. Maybe they could mix in the survival genre with Splatoon, creating an open world to explore with your friends and gather resources in, fight enemies in, create bases with each other. Or maybe something that's just like a bigger version of Salmon Run or Turf War that lasts longer and is kind of more in the style of a battle royale without the map being quite as big, because the goal would be to ink your own territory, and I don't think anyone wants to spend a whole day trying to ink up the entirety of a Fortnite-sized map. But something maybe a little bit more smaller scale, where you're a party of 4 people trying to capture various splat zones across a bigger map with a storm or circle slowly closing in over the course of the match. You can find various power-ups by exploring, like extra armor, or maybe even something more akin to the chipsets in Side Order. Maybe they could make the buildings and towns that you find in this mode a lot more platform heavy than something you would find in Fortnite or PUBG, where there's like a bunch of ink rails you can make and ways you can get around and find secret goodies to power yourself up and fight the other people who dare come to the town that you've inked to the brim. There's so many times in Fortnite where me and my team are doing pretty good and we already have the loot we want, but it's just not late in the game, so we just end up like standing around doing nothing. And the great thing about Splatoon in comparison to other shooters like Fortnite is that you can always do something, whether it be like inking turf or trying to kill enemies or whatever. And part of that is because of the smaller map, but also because ink isn't used to just kill, it's used to secure zones and area, and there's always more to ink. So I think that core gameplay of Splatoon could work really well well in a battle royale type format if it was shrink down to maybe like 10 teams of 4, and maybe each team has their own island, which is the size of a typical Splatoon map, and you can access the other maps through like a series of platforming challenges like an ink rail and maybe some ink sponges or whatever. It's like a mini kind of single player level in between those multiplayer levels that are the initial base of each team, and you can have it work a little bit more like Bed Wars from Minecraft, where it's not this sprawling map, but rather a bunch of individual islands that you can kind of conquer, take control of, and slowly choke out your enemy one by one. What I just described actually seems better as a online multiplayer mode than a local multiplayer one, but the point is that there's so many ideas that can be applied to Splatoon, both in a single player sense, like with side order, and a multiplayer sense, like with what I just described, and I really want to see Nintendo do something with it, particularly for local multiplayer, so I can get people into Splatoon a little bit more easier, and so I could just have that fun couch co-op experience that I have with games like Mario Party and Mario Kart in Splatoon, or even if there was a free-to-play spin-off Splatoon game that would only require my friends to have a Switch to play and get into, that would be really cool too, and would open up Splatoon to a lot more people. But regardless of what I personally want to see in the Splatoon franchise going forward, I'm also really excited to hear your ideas for what Splatoon should do in the future in the comment section below. I'm sure you guys have a lot of ideas, whether they be more fleshed out or half-baked, but whatever you have to say, I would love to hear it in the comment section below, as I think there are so many ideas that could work with Splatoon. Like, I never thought in a million years that the side order DLC would be a roguelike and it would work well, but here we are. So no matter how crazy the idea is, I think it can and might work in Splatoon, and I would love to hear what you guys have to say. But regardless, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in another video.